Long before human hands ever shaped a field or carved a tool, the earth was ruled by the wild. Deep within the damp, emerald-choked canopy of prehistoric Southeast Asia, the ancestor of the modern fruit grew in absolute obscurity. If you were to slice open one of these primeval pods, you would find no soft, sweet flesh. Instead, you would meet a wall of hard, jagged black seeds, a weapon of botanical defense designed to outlast time, not to grace a breakfast table. For millennia, this untouched wilderness hummed in ancient isolation. The sweet fruit we know today did not exist. It was merely a stubborn, wild anomaly, hidden among towering ferns and tangled lianas, waiting for a spark of human curiosity to wake it from the shadows. That spark came when early indigenous hands parted the damp foliage, discovering a rare, mutation-stunted plant cluster. With a sharp flint blade and the flick of an early campfire spark, humanity took its very first step toward domesticating the wild forest anomaly, unknowingly altering the destiny of the world forever.
With sterile, seedless mutations safely tucked into their canoes, ancient Polynesian navigators carried rare root cuttings across vast, unforgiving ocean gaps, launching the global spread of the fruit. On volcanic Pacific islands, farmers pressed these strange clones into ash-rich soil, watching sweet, edible bunches sway in the island wind for the very first time. Soon, Asian coastal ports caught the wave, loading heavy agricultural cargo onto wooden merchant junks bound for continental river networks. The Silk Road echoed with the dust of merchant caravans, wrapping precious, perishable bunches in damp leaves to survive the desert heat. As centuries turned, medieval monks in stone-walled courtyards carefully tended experimental fruit trees, while Islamic scholars mapped botanical marvels from the east. The Atlantic leap was inevitable. Portuguese caravels, battered by heavy swells, carried precious biological cargo toward the Canary Islands, setting the stage for a fateful voyage toward the New World horizon, where a pristine Caribbean coastline awaited the arrival of agricultural ambitions that would rewrite history.
Spanish colonial plantations carved ruthlessly into the tropical landscape, where enslaved laborers under an oppressive sun hacked down dense brush to plant endless rows of imported shoots. Back in Europe, a single imported banana sat like a rare trophy on silver platters in dimly lit aristocratic parlors, an exotic curiosity tasted with cautious wonder. But the true revolution required speed. 19th century clipper ships raced across the blue sea, fighting time to deliver green fruit to northern ports before it could rot. At the foggy Boston docks, manual laborers unloaded heavy stalks into horse-drawn carts destined for elite urban markets. Wrapped in tinfoil and paper on winter street corners, pedestrians tasted a miraculous novelty for the very first time.
Then came the tycoons. Standing in the Costa Rican jungle, railway visionary Minor C. Keith realized that trackside bananas were far more profitable than the trains themselves. Iron rails slashed through swamps, and the legendary Great White Fleet of the United Fruit Company was born, transforming fragile fruit into a ruthless corporate empire ruled from polished mahogany boardrooms.
Endless, manicured corporate plantations stretched across Central American valleys beneath brooding volcanoes, guarded by armed militia. Real power rested not with elected governments, but with foreign syndicate directors who carved up sovereign nations into private agricultural kingdoms. When exhausted plantation workers gathered outside locked gates to demand fair wages, local military forces, acting as corporate enforcers, opened fire, cementing the dark historical reality of the term Banana Republic.
On high-speed packing lines, nature's diversity was completely erased. Every single banana shipped west was washed, stamped with a blue corporate sticker, and boxed to look, weigh, and ripen identically. By 1955, suburban American kitchens embraced the fruit as a cheap, ubiquitous symbol of post-war domestic bliss. Scientists peering through laboratory microscopes celebrated the unstoppable commercial success of the Gros Michel banana, completely blind to the biological nightmare brewing silently in the warm, wet, tropical soil below. Unseen and unstoppable, microscopic fungal threads of Fusarium oxysporum, Panama disease, began their silent, choking invasion of the root vascular systems across pristine commercial plantations. Overnight, farmers watched in stunned disbelief as entire acres of vibrant green Gros Michel plants turned yellow and withered into dust. Panicked executives in New York watched red profit lines plummet as their unbeatable corporate machine collided with a biological reality it could not conquer. Unable to cure the soil, corporations simply abandoned millions of acres of dead land, clearing fresh, virgin rainforests to start anew. Desperate botanists scoured remote global jungles for wild, resistant variants, finally finding hope in an unremarkable, sturdy variety known as the Cavendish, a plant originally nurtured in an English duke's greenhouse. With a massive corporate gamble, the world transitioned overnight to a single genetic clone, erasing the rich flavor of the original banana forever and locking the entire global supply chain inside a shiny white cargo container.
Endless geometric rows of identical Cavendish clones stretched to the horizon under bright tropical suns. Because the clone lacked natural resilience in a monoculture, modern plantations became entirely dependent on heavy chemical pesticide sprays and high-pressure irrigation life support. High-tech refrigerated cargo holds kept the fruit in cryogenic stasis from jungle to supermarket shelf, feeding the illusion of permanent abundance in modern grocery store aisles. But nature never rests. In experimental stations in Southeast Asia, researchers peered at soil samples under harsh fluorescent lamps and rang quiet alarm bells. A terrifying new mutated strain, Tropical Race 4, TR4, had emerged. Unlike previous blights, TR4 could survive dormant in soil for decades, completely immune to standard fungicides. Carried on the boots of travelers and shipping container mud, the fungus marched silently along global trade routes. Once again, a fragile agricultural giant stood vulnerable under stormy skies, facing the exact same biological trap that destroyed its predecessor. Inside sterile genetic laboratories, scientists attempted to splice resistance genes into the sterile Cavendish genome. Because the fruit cannot reproduce sexually and has no seeds, traditional breeding proved nearly impossible, leaving it an evolutionary dead end. Plantations implemented desperate quarantine measures, washing truck tires and stringing up bright yellow warning tape in a futile effort to outrun an airborne and soil-borne ghost. Deep in remote Southeast Asian swamps, botanists waded through leech-infested waters, hunting for forgotten, wild, seed-filled ancestors that might carry the genetic armor needed to save the commercial fruit. While some visionaries proposed moving production indoors into multi-story vertical farms bathed in purple LED light, the elderly in sunlit kitchens peeled rare heirloom varieties, tasting a rich, lost flavor preserved only in private gardens and cryogenic seed vaults.
Modern port facilities in Ecuador loaded thousands of green Cavendish containers onto towering cargo ships under bright floodlights, operating at peak velocity despite the looming shadow of TR4. The banana remained the most democratic, affordable dietary anchor for billions, yet it walked a razor-thin edge between endless corporate abundance and total ecological collapse. Global digital maps glowed red as infection zones expanded across continents. Cutting-edge CRISPR labs utilized blue lasers to edit plant cells in real time, racing against time to engineer a genetically modified blight-resistant Cavendish before the current clone fell. Yet public
TR4.
skepticism and regulatory hurdles
mutated.
stood as massive roadblocks. Humanity's history remained forever intertwined with the soil, reminding us that true survival depends not on sterile uniformity, but on the fragile, wild seeds that make life possible.
From a wild jungle weed to a global economic titan, the bananas successfully conquered every corner of the inhabited world, binding continents together in trade. Yet, beneath the endless green canopy grids, rich tropical soils remained locked in an ancient, silent biological war. Science, genetics, and human ingenuity stood as the final barrier between a thriving global breakfast staple and sudden extinction. As automated supermarkets scanned barcodes on spotless yellow bunches, the profound echo of history resonated. We are not masters of the earth, but stewards of its fragile living systems. The journey from wild prehistoric roots to modern industrial civilization holds a timeless lesson. Our future depends entirely on protecting the wild biodiversity and fragile seeds that sustain our world.
Dormant TR4 fungal spores cracked open inside warm South American soils, stretching out microscopic hyphae toward defenseless Cavendish root systems. The silent enemy had breached the final sanctuary. Agricultural inspectors in biosafety suits burned infected fields, while international monitoring centers tracked glowing red infection vectors on towering digital walls. The logistical bottleneck tightened as ports enforced strict biosecurity checks. Inside sterile laboratories, robotic microinjectors pierced tiny plant embryos under blue laser light, pushing forward the frontier of gene editing. Yet, as government hearing rooms debated the safety of modified fruit, consumers faced a profound choice at supermarket shelves. The era of taking the cheap, uniform Cavendish for granted was drawing to a close, forcing humanity to confront the true ecological cost of global food supply chains, standing at the threshold of tomorrow. Our history is written in the soil, shaped by the crops we chose to domesticate, alter, and depend upon. Deep within subterranean vaults, diverse seeds glow softly in warm volumetric light, a reminder that true strength lies in biological diversity, not sterile monocultural uniformity. As planet Earth spins slowly in the vast cosmic dark, illuminated by a rising sun, a final truth settles in. We are stewards of fragile living systems. Every single bite we take carries the weight of history, the brilliance of human science, and the delicate, breathing future of life on Earth.